Hey everyone, this is Jen from JCats Creations, and today I will be showing you how I make the ribbon roses that I've been putting in some of my flower wreaths lately. So just to quickly go over what we'll be using to make that, you will need a pair of scissors, you will need 2 pipe cleaners, a hot glue gun, and we will be attaching it to a circle of the plastic canvas or plastic grid, whatever you may call it. We'll need one of those, as well as a roll of ribbon. I've made a few of them so far. Every time I do it, I use 2.5 inch. It's always wired. Make sure it's wired. And in a 10-yard roll, which is 30 feet, we will be using 20 feet of the 30-foot roll. So even if you're buying, smaller rolls of ribbon, no matter how you get there, you just need 20 feet total. I've already cut off the pieces I need, and what I do is I make 2 10-foot pieces because they're a lot easier to handle and work with than one 20-foot piece. And I also just wanted to say that I've found that it works best. This is an example of another ribbon that I've used. If it's a sheer or semi-sheer, or even like the one I will be using is a little bit thicker, but it's still it's pretty flexible. So you want to look at something like that. Is generally the best kind of ribbon I found so far for making these. At one point I was going to try and make the rose out of, it was actually this one, but it's more like one of those canvas ones, and it's way too thick. I found that when you bunch it all up, and then when you start kind of trying to roll it to make the rose, it's just too thick, and it came out kind of just bumpy and lumpy. It didn't look very good. So just make note of that if you're possibly going to try one, like I said, go for sheer, semi-sheer, or even just ones that seem to have a lot of flexibility to them are definitely the best ones I've found. So like I said, I've already cut 2 pieces of 10 feet, and you'll see why I break it down. And if you want to, even cut them smaller, maybe, 4 or 5 foot pieces, kind of whatever you're comfortable working with is, what you can do. I mean, you just join them together, which I'll show you how I join these 2 pieces together. And, once you start kind of really bunching everything and you get lower down in it, you kind of feel like you need Gumby arms for it. So it does get a little bit difficult. If you do want to cut down smaller bits, then go right ahead, whatever works for you. When you cut your pieces, make sure that you get the wires, you pull them out like I've done here, and then I bend it over nice and tight. Do it on both sides, and then do it on both ends. So you have all of them. See, I left these out just to show. So you want all of them bent down and over, because when you start pulling on this, you want to make sure that it's not going to start sliding off the other end. Because I've done that. That's very unpleasant because you have to backtrack and try and pull the wire back out. You don't want to do that. So I've got them all bent down. So then I take, it doesn't really matter, like this one, it has a pattern that can go either way. If you've got one that does kind of have a pattern that's, up or down, the side that we're going to be pulling will be the bottom. So if you have some form of a pattern that needs to be kind of right side up, make sure it's facing up that way and pull from the bottom side. So all I'm going to do, I then take the wire that I had tucked down on this side, and then I just start sliding the ribbon down the wire. You want to try be kind of gentle with this. I've tried some, and the ribbon itself, there wasn't any problem with, but the wire just must have been thinner or weaker, and I've had it snap inside. So you kind of have to be pretty mindful of trying to be kind of gentle with it when you're doing it. And you just grab and just start pulling it down. And like this, you know, you do start getting a long bit pretty quickly. I roll it around my finger and take it off so that if for some reason I need to put this down, or, you know, just in general, that it doesn't all just slide back up on you. So I always do the little roll circle so I don't lose what I've done. And it's basically just the process of pulling it down the wire and scrunching it up. I timed it before. I think it took me like just under maybe 10 minutes to do one piece. So, I mean, it's not like it's something that takes forever. And normally I have this kind of draped down onto the floor, so it does go a little bit faster that way too. But if you just hold and just keep pulling. Just make sure you keep winding it up so you don't lose what you've done already. Now, what I do end up getting to a certain point where, you know, you kind of have your arms outstretched as far as you can go, trying to pull this all the way to the bottom. At that point, I will start from the other end and just start scrunching, you know, backwards the other way till they kind of meet in the middle. And I found that to be a little bit easier, where you don't feel like you're stretching so much as far, and it's not as hard to do it. So I'm not going to make you watch me do all that. That's the gist of that. I actually have the other half that I did finish, so you could see what it's supposed to look like when it's done. And really, it's just a big ruffly ribbon. That's it. You could see, you know, just try and pull it as tight as you can so it's, you know, pretty scrunched up. And this is, you know, all the wire that I have hanging out from the ends from all the scrunching that I have it on both sides. So just to give an idea, that's pretty much what it looks like when you do it. I found kind of the tighter you can make it all, the more roughly the rows will look at the end result. So I do try to get these as pretty scrunched up as I possibly can to achieve that look at the end. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to finish pulling the wire on the other piece, and then when I come back I'll show you how I start rolling it. Okay, so I have both pieces of the ribbon all ruffled up now, and at this point we're going to start rolling it up. So all I do on the end that I'm going to start with, all that wire that I had, I just kind of squish it up a little bit and I fold it up so that once I start rolling it'll just be tucked up out of the way. So I just start rolling it, and when I do that, at this point I make sure that I have my bottom part lining up, because that'll pretty much be your baseline, I guess. This you want to be lined up, because this is the top part that'll end up being kind of roughly. So, you know, as you keep going along, that'll look a little more flared out, and, you know, it won't be a good judge of making sure that it's all kind of straight and lining up. So I just give it a good couple rolls, because the first few that you have here are going to be the very center of your rows. So I just do a few of those. And then at this point, I will start turning over the top edge. And when I do that, I then kind of pull that piece up that I first started to turn so that the rest of it kind of hangs down a little bit past it. And it's good in one way because it kind of gives you something to hang on to while you're doing this. But if you don't do that, and you know, kind of where you have this bit a little bit higher now, then the very center is going to be sticking out like way further than the rest of it. You know, it would be kind of like that as a finished result. So I started kind of rolling it up a little bit when I did that to make it look a little more even at the end. So now I just start following along where I have it pulled up a little bit, and then all I do, I just wrap around so that the next line just kind of goes right behind. You could kind of see what I'm doing there. Because you started flipping it, it'll kind of pretty much just start doing that, but I usually still just kind of turn it over every now and then, make sure it's all still going how I want it to, fixing it a little bit. So I mean, you could see at this point it's already starting to form a little bit. I flip back over and just keep rolling. So I definitely would really consider this hard to do, you know, a little awkward and time consuming, I think would be a better description. But if you've watched my tutorials and you see what I make, I seem to kind of have a thing for stuff like this, so you guys shouldn't be surprised. Just kind of keep rolling it around itself at this point. As I said, flip it back over. You know, you can kind of move this part that you've flipped over up or down. You don't have to get too fiddly with it at this point, you know, because once it's all said and done is when I go back and really start fixing everything. But just to, you know, keep checking just to make sure that it's all pretty much going the way you want it to look. So with this one, I think because it's a little bit thicker of a ribbon, when I've done this with the sheer or semi-sheer, it's a little bit easier to kind of get a hold on the whole thing, and then I will glue it. But since this is a little bit thicker, I think I might just throw some glue on here now, so it'll be a little bit easier to handle as I go along. Let's see, that's all. It's just rolling around. It's not perfect by any means. It's, you know, nobody, this is the ugly, nobody's going to see that side, so don't worry about it. Just make sure, like I said, you know, you flip it over and kind of seems to be still going the way you want it to go. And like I said, you know, all this stuff we fix and play around with when it's done. So this little part I've been holding, it's now kind of become a little handle. You know, I just kind of push it a little bit to where I want it. You don't want it sunk in too deep, but you obviously don't want it sticking out really far either. Because like I said, it will be the very center, so you kind of just want to line that up. before you start throwing some glue on it. Now I will say this is my very first time with this glue gun. My husband got it for me for Valentine's Day. Because I don't know if you've seen other tutorials where I'm always complaining about my glue gun. So I guess he'd heard me enough and he decided to buy me one. It's bigger. The last one I was using was a mini. This is a Arrow, like normal sized glue gun. It's the first normal sized one I've ever had. And it seems pretty good so far. So I guess I'll have to give him credit for that. And actually this mat that I'm working on, I try not to stick your fingers in there, but you know you're going to do that anyway. This is it's like a silicone mat to use underneath when you're using hot glue. It's a Fisker's brand. I think it was Target that he got both of these at. It's the first time I've used this too, but it's actually really good because I'm the type of person that constantly gets hot glue on my cutting mat, which, you know, it's not good. So this thing seems pretty cool too. If it's anything you're interested in, just ask me and I'll give you, you know, I've still got the box that I could tell you more about it. I'm just trying to let this set up for a second. Okay. Get your fingers out of there. So I'm just going to keep rolling. Just to give you an idea, this is pretty much all you're going to be doing. So this is pretty much all I do for, you know, getting this basic shape going on. Even if you've glued it, I mean, you can still obviously move this top half as much as you like. You know, you could make the rollover, you know, very thin. You could go a little bit thicker. And so, you know, you could see it's definitely getting the rose shape at this point. So at this point I'm just going to finish this section and get it glued up, and then when I come back I'll show you how I add the second half of the ribbon, and then it'll just be the same rolling thing after that. So I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so at this point I went and I glued it all up there in the back. It's not pretty, doesn't matter, nobody will ever see it. Just make sure you've got enough glue on there that, you know, there's no way that anything's going to start coming apart on you. But this is what it looks like after the first 10 feet of ribbon. And all I've done, you know, I just kind of went around and, like I said, you know, you just kind of move this flap up or down however you want. And what's nice, why I use the wired ribbon, is that, you know, once you've kind of got it folded over where you like it, you just gently put bends in it. Just try not to make them look pointy, but, you know, if you just do kind of gentle waves and bends in it, is what kind of gives it that whole roughly look to make it look more like a rose. So if for any reason you just wanted to stop here with 10 feet The 10 feet I measured out is, this one here is about 6 inches. I like them a little bit bigger when I'm putting them into the flower wreaths because I like to make sure that they are wide enough that they cover the pipe cleaners in the center, because I actually just placed it over the top of it, which I'll show you when we get to that point. But if you're looking to make a smaller one for any reason, you know, you could do just the 10 feet and, you know, be about 6 inches, 6 inches around at this point, which is also nice, you know, even if you wanted to go smaller, you know, just like maybe smaller flowers on a wreath or just embellishments for something. You know, they don't always have to be huge ones for the center of a flower wreath. So it's kind of nice that there's a lot of options in that sense. So as you saw before, I had all that wire, and all I did was just cut off the big swirly chunk, and once again just folded it down so it stays like that. Now to join the two together, I fold the one that's, you know, I leave this little bit and then I fold it back like that. Put a little bit of glue on it. And then I take the other half and I clipped off the excess on this one too. Just, you know, like I said, just pull it out, fold it down. And I take this and I put it right over where I've folded to join them together. Then you can see from this side that folding it over like that gives it a clean edge, so that when you join them together it's not really as noticeable. And then, you know, this will be folded down anyway, so you won't really see if, you know, it doesn't line up perfectly for any reason. But I found that when I fold that edge over, you know, it just gives it a cleaner line for when you join the two together. Just give it a little more glue to make sure. I'm a fan of the hot glue. I probably use too much most of the time, but I like it. Now you could just glue that together too, so that's all secure at this point. So it is a lot easier to kind of, you know, get a handle on making the whole thing if you're gluing as you go. As I said, I have held one, you know, 10-foot piece in my hand at once, but since this is a little bit thicker, that wouldn't have been as easy to do. And now all you're going to do is just keep rolling. It's the same exact thing that we did the first time. I just wanted to show you that so you could see how you join the pieces together. So like I said in the beginning, if, you know, the 10-foot strip is a little too long still for you, you want to cut it down even smaller than that. You know, this is how you would just join the pieces together. And then you just keep rolling until you get to the end. So I'm going to finish up rolling and gluing this one, and then I'll come back and show you how I just kind of fluff it and get it all rosy looking. So I'll be back in a few. Okay, so I have the second half of it fully attached, and this is what it looks like now. I kind of went and fixed up my ruffles a little bit, but just to give you an idea, this is how it pretty much looks when it's done. Like I said, you know, I mean, you can go around and, you know, you bend and you can push it down and up as much as you want, whatever you like, however roughly or not roughly you want it to be. And, you know, basically I just kind of go around and just try to make sure that the whole thing looks even. And, you know, just kind of fix it up so that it, just the ruffles are the way you like. You could spend as little or as long on that part as you like. Because the way I am, I usually spend longer on this part than the whole rest of it. So this is what the back of it looks like. Like I said, it's just a whole bunch of hot glue glopped together, but just it's enough to where, you know, it's never going to go anywhere. It's all, you know, very secure. And so at this point, oh, and just when I did the final edge, I folded it over again so that when you see it from this side, you know, there's no raw edge of the ribbon. And I usually just kind of tuck that underneath the row before, so you don't ever really notice where it ends, and that's not a problem of seeing that. So what I do at this point to attach it to the center of a flower, and this is where the grid comes in, and the 2 pipe cleaners. And I find, you know, round about the middle of the circle, and I just stick the pipe cleaner through. Just to even it up. So that's all, I just stuck it through. And then I take the other one and I go over the top of that one. So I just kind of have a little crisscross X kind of a thing. And then I just twist them together so they don't go anywhere. Probably never go anywhere anyway, but just have to make sure. So then I take this and more hot glue. I will now go and glue it where it kind of meets the top of my line here, and that the pipe cleaners are on the outside. So once again, it's just running glob of glue. Nobody will ever see it. Don't worry about it if it's not pretty. You just want to make sure you have enough on there. Oops, sorry about that. That the grid sticks very well. And instead of the pipe cleaners, if you know you prefer floral wire, you could totally do that. It's just I like putting the pipe cleaners in the middle like that. I just feel like it's a nice, secure, and stable when I go and attach it to the center of the wreath. And see, I just make sure I have enough glue to where I push down like that. You see all the glue comes up through the grid holes. And then I'll just go over the top of it too, just to make sure. Like I said before, I like hot glue. I'm definitely not shy with it, so just definitely want to make sure there's enough on here that this thing is never going to go anywhere. I've made a few of them so far. I haven't had any issues with anything coming off or falling off or anything like that. But this is the way I do it. You know, if you have another way that you prefer better, go right ahead. So at this point, I will let the glue dry and make sure it's nice and secure. And I already have the flower wreath made, so I'll show you how I put the center in, and then we'll see how it all looks all together and done. Okay, so I am back. My glue is all dry. This is pretty much what it's going to look like, all said and done. Here's the back. Like I said, it's secure. It's not going to go anywhere. So what I do now is I just flip it. I put it down into the center of my wreath. So the pipe cleaners that I had put in the center of the grid, I just spread out, and then, you know, pretty much anywhere, you know, it's across here and I can find a place to kind of stick it through. And I just do that in all 4 directions. I just kind of fold them over for now so that it's tight enough, and then I flip it back over. Kind of see how we're looking, and straighten it out a little bit if I need to loosen one side or tighten up another side. And then when I do the final, I feel it's good, everything's done, I just give them a few twists around the rings there on the inside, and they're always very secure when that's done. But as I said, that's why I like to make the rows to be about 8 inches, so that it covers up all these pipe cleaners and stuff down here. It's plenty big enough to where I don't have to worry about any of that stuff showing through. And if I do have a spot that, you know, may look like it's a little gappy, I could either add another petal there at that point, or because, you know, the ribbon is so easy to move around, you can kind of reshape it if you need to fill any holes or gaps. So it does work out pretty good in that sense too. Okay, so just bear with me 1 second. I'm going to hang it up on the wall so you guys can get a better idea of what the finished product looks like. Okay, so that is, oh, I gotta back up. Okay. That is the finished product. I had made the flower itself the other day. If you're interested in how I made the flower part, that is my skinny petal tutorial that you could also find here on YouTube. And just so we could zoom in a little and see how it fills. I don't really see any gaps or anything. Like I said, if I did, I would, you know, just fluff out the ribbon part a little bit more, or add another petal if I needed to. This one I decided to do a silver on the back with purple petals, so that was why I chose the ribbon that I did. So that's pretty much it. That's how you make the ribbon rose for either a flower center or, you know, any other kind of embellishment. I would like to thank you for watching me today. You can follow me on Facebook at JCats Creations. I'm also on Pinterest, JCats Creations, and Instagram at JCats Creations Wreath. If you have any questions, please feel free, give me a shout out, let me know, comments, whatever, you know, any ideas or anything else that you'd like me to do, just let me know. I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you soon.